Hi, and welcome to Psychic Sushi. I'm Reverend Elizabeth Howell, and today we have our special guest is Thomas Caine. And Thomas has written a book called Healing and Protection. And it's a good read, all right? Healing and protection. I think everybody needs a little bit of both in their lives, so I'm really grateful. Thank you, Tom, for coming on today. I've known you for so many years, and I've met you back, I think it's been 20 years.
Probably. Yeah.
So it's really great that, you wrote this book and now you have it available. And I think, we'll share some stories about how it's helped people, how it has worked on a daily basis for people. And also talk about why you started this book, what happened and what's going on with your journey. So welcome, Tom, again. I know it's been, you've done some other TV shows, you've been, promoting your book, and I think that's really great. So I'm just grateful that you came on today and to share with the people of Brunswick and TV land that you have your book. But we want to, just first let people know a little bit about you. And you basically had a first life. Was that of a police officer, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you worked, 20 years on the force?
27 and a half years.
27 and a half years.
Yes.
And worked hard. You were also a detective.
That's correct.
Worked your butt off to get those ratings. And when I first met you, you were trying to put together, where psychics could work with detectives. And you were trying to put together some legitimate teams or a situation where this could be something like a nonprofit to help police officers use people with talents like mediums and psychics. And I know that was a real goal close to your heart, that it was something you felt that was going to be very necessary in the future for the future of helping people. So what happened with that, and what motivated you to do that?
In the city where I worked, several years ago, in fact it goes back to 30 years now, and we had an elderly woman that was attacked and robbed in her home, and she was raped, and the guy wore a mask. She would look at him, and it was a real hot night, and she would look at him when he picked up the mask, and he'd punch her in the face. He was very brutal, and I never had a suspect for that because of the mask. She was able to give me a composite. He had gloves on. We had dusted inside and outside for fingerprints. At that time, there was the West Side rapist in Cleveland. A Cleveland officer came out and helped me with the processing of the scene, just to see if it was the same person. It wasn't. She kept saying it's not a young guy, it was an older guy. So to be honest, I used to pray every day on the way to work, let me solve this case. God, give me a chance. And I had never worked with a psychic. And I just ran into one at the time. She was down at Southland in Middleburg Heights. She was working out of a store there.
Oh, Sunrise Bookstores?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And some of the things she told me, I think was things that she wanted me to feel good about, but it wasn't the truth. So I kept praying, and a second one came along. And the way she came along was I had been injured helping take down a guy who was trying to commit suicide, and I was out of work for a month. And when I came back, one of the restaurants had been broken into. And the manager was friends with her, and he said, my friend would like to talk to you. And I said, well, I don't have a lot of experience with the psychic. I don't know too much about it. And the first one really kind of scared me off, but, at least sit down and talk with her, okay? Right. Well, she was telling, talking lotteries coming in and, all that stuff, and just to make you feel good, and I knew it wasn't true. And it never did come in, so let's put it that way. And so she came in one day and she said, the two suspects you want for breaking in the restaurant are Joe and Charlie. Now, Joe was a 17-year-old kid that used to work there. And she said, don't bring him in, though. You'll never crack him. She said, you think you are a good interviewer. She said, but this kid is hardcore. And the manager, George, was giving him a chance. He had dropped out of high school, and he knew the family. He was trying to help the kid. So I thought, she told me that. I still think I'm good. So I brought him in. I couldn't crack him. but nobody knew who Charlie was. So I called her up. I said, I can't find Charlie. Nobody knows who he is. And he lived in another city next to us. And she said, in a couple of weeks, another police department will give you Charlie. And she said, go after him. And she said, I know you went after Joe, but it didn't work out, did it? And I said, no, it didn't. And she said, you didn't listen? I said, well, what do you want? What do you expect, It's the first time that I went through it, so you learn by mistake sometimes, too.
Sure.
So a couple of weeks later, this one police department called, and they said, we got 2 guys interfering with our undercover officer. One is Joe and one is Charlie. And I said, can you give me some information on Charlie? And they said, yes. And I brought Charlie in, told him that someone saw someone on the outside with a walkie-talkie and someone on the inside, is what the details she gave us. And he said, yes, it was us. He confessed.
Oh, amazing.
So,
yeah.
and that was, and I told the psychic, I said, that was an easy one. Really.
I don't know, it just not too easy to me, but she
Yeah.
nailed it.
Well, I mean, I've got this case, getting ready to, at that time, approach the statute of limitations.
Oh.
At that time it was 6 years. So we're getting real close where we're going to lose this. And I said, would you like to help me on this case here? And she said, I was told that you're going to be a vampire, you're going to take all my energy. And I said, well, if you're good and if you're supposed to be helping people, this is your opportunity. And she was just kidding. So we began to work together. And she had worked with several other police departments. I wasn't the first one to come up with this. In fact, I had a Cleveland officer call me and said, we worked as psychics back in the 60s and 70s. And he didn't know the lady that I work with now, but she told me the other officers, and I knew all 3 of them, and talked to them, and they said, yes, she's very good. So we began to work on the case, and I actually wrote a book on that. That's called The Case of the Golden Swan, and I'll release that, I hope, within the next 6 months, I'm hoping.
Oh, okay.
I've written that, but I had a lot of things happen in my life and kind of distracted me for a while. So that's ready to come out.
Oh, good. That'll be very fascinating.
And then I used the techniques on this book in that case when we went to trial. So she asked if she could go to the victim's house, and I said, yes, we could. And we went to the victim's house, and she walked through the whole house, and she said, it's somebody with the furnace company. And I said, okay. So she said, call them up and ask them who their employees were in this year. And again, this was 1987. So I said, okay. So I went over there, showed her the composite, and the lady was, from day one, she was adamant. She was arguing with me the whole time. I don't have to talk to you. I said, no, you don't, but I can go get a search warrant and take what I want. And I said, I'd rather just talk to you one-on-one. Do you know who this person is? She had no idea. So as that case transpired and we moved on, I was checking people. They were too young, too tall, didn't work there in that year. We were looking for a guy in his 50s. And the psychic asked me, it was just before Christmas that year. She said, could I ride with you tonight? And I said, sure, I'm checking the last guy out. And she said, take me back to the furnace company. And she walked up and she touched the doorknob and she came back to the car and she said, call her up and ask her who Arnie is. So I called her up and she said, there is no Arnie here. And I put out a message with our teletype system. It was like a computer system before computers are what they are today. And one of the sergeants from that city called me and said, Arnie's her brother, Robert. I flew over there, got the picture, went back to her, and took 2 of their officers in case this time she lied to me some more. I was going to arrest her. And she finally said, yeah, my brother's in California. And I said, well, you're not to tip him off. She did anyhow. Oh. He took off, but we caught him the next year, and we brought him back, and we were the first DNA case in Cleveland for the new DNA, in Cuyahoga County, actually. And it matched.
Amazing.
So I was as shocked as everyone else.
Can we give a shout out to this psychic? First name, maybe?
Well, she wants to go by Reverend Teresa because she likes St. Teresa. She doesn't want to be publicized. She doesn't.
She sounds good.
Yeah, she wants to do it on the side. Right now, she's into more of the holistic health stuff, and it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of work. I mean, we worked a lot of nights on this. This wasn't 5 minutes. No.
Oh no.
Yeah. So we finally caught the guy. Not till the next year. And caught him in California. He was drunk in a bar, bragging to a retired police officer that he was wanted for rape in Ohio.
Oh, just like kind of opened that door, right?
Yeah, he put himself in jail.
Put himself in jail.
So we ended up bringing him back here, and the DNA match and everything else. And I'm going to save the rest of that story for the book.
For the book,
Yeah,
right.
for the book, Case of the Golden
Absolutely.
Swan. And when that comes out, I'll let you know.
That's fascinating because I know that we had talked, and I really thought that that was such a brilliant idea, and it's really sad that you were not able to get the nonprofit together. And maybe it'll happen, maybe it'll happen. You never want to close a door; it might open up again for you. But I think that that's really psychic, and it's interesting about psychics and using them in police work. Because it's kind of also sometimes psychics are like, there are 3 or 4 psychics, and it's kind of like they're touching an elephant, and one says it's a snake because they're touching the trunk, and the other one says it's a tree because they're holding the foot. So sometimes the psychics see just a part of a picture. So sometimes even having a team of readers or psychics can give you the clues that correspond, right?
Yeah, there are a lot of groups that actually do that across the United States now. And we had started a group, it was called Opal Task Force, Organized Psychics in Law Enforcement.
Oh.
Yeah, and we did cases. The strange part is with police officers, they don't always want to work together. They say they do, but they don't.
Yeah.
And the one guy says, well, you're from a small department, why would I want to work with you? And I said, well, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to work with the psychic. And I said, there's certain rules you have to follow. And one of the things was, she said, if I'm in a psychic mode, never touch me, because the energy can change so much it could affect me. She said, never touch me. And I remember we were doing a murder case south of here, and all of a sudden a storm came up, and it started raining, and I'm trying to get her attention, and she's not listening because she's in a psychic mode. Well, the guy that was murdered was Chucky, and the police didn't like him. They didn't care that we were there. I was told that. Mm-hmm. In fact, one told me, why don't I just leave? So, and that happens. But as I got closer to her, I said, Teresa, you've got to wake up. Listen to me. And she said, I'm not Teresa, I'm Chucky.
Oh, so she was channeling.
Yeah, she was channeling him too, and that scared me too.
Yeah.
And,
well, that's sometimes.
And that was recorded on tape, and there's a couple other things that happened there. We have that on tape, which, again, it's not things that we're used to. I mean, that can really scare the heck out of you. And the police officer,
Sure.
The investigator was a former Secret Service.
Oh.
And he said the county prosecutor had appointed him. And he said, in the beginning, he said, I thought this was kind of a bit of a fraud. He said, but after I saw the stuff that happened, he said, I'll work with you guys anytime. That's what he told me.
Oh, cool. How cool. Amazing.
And, yeah, I don't know if they ever solved it. I didn't hear anything more from them. All of a sudden, the evidence from the case was missing. They didn't like Chucky.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and they called it a suicide, so it was a real mess. And but she said, we gave them the direction. It's up to them at this point.
So do you still have your task force together, or is that kind of on the back burner now?
It's on the back burner. Occasionally somebody will call me and say, who could I use? And I would steer them to somebody that I know. Mm-hmm. We actually had a group of psychics. We came in and tested them in Fairlawn. And what I did is I get 6 different criminal cases and staple them in a file. Mm-hmm. And anybody can choose any file. And then, but they have to tell me the 5 things: who, what, where, when, and how.
Now that's really, that's fascinating, because on the downside, on a, like John Edward was talking, I found that very fascinating. John Edward was talking about how he doesn't do missing people or dead people or murder cases anymore. He did it just once, and he felt that the karmic backlash was going to be too much for him, because he felt like he got everything. He got all the details right, the name, the face, everything. He got that whole right, but it still ended up being an innocent person. And he's like, it actually, which was a bizarre case, is that the culprit was someone who had this exact first name and last name, but different middle name. And that was like, so he was off by just a middle name. And it freaked him out so badly that he said he would never work again, doing that, because he didn't want to falsely imprison or accuse somebody, in that way. But I know that, there have been other people that have been trying to put together task forces or psychic forces and stuff. which I think is really, I think it is helpful. You know, but a downside example is everything that happened with the 3 girls that were missing and being held kidnapped.
Yeah.
That the parents, I know for a fact, the parents of Gina
DeJesus, yeah.
Jesus went to every psychic in Cleveland. Like they went to every psychic in Cleveland asking for help, and majority of the psychics were like 90% of them were completely off, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like I can see where it could be super frustrating for them. So I'm glad maybe keeping that standard, putting together and having that task force where you've got a standard that's available to people, I think would be really great. Because I also wanted to share a really sad story is that Sylvia Brown, long and the short, and I shouldn't say because she's passed away, so I guess it's okay.
Yeah.
I can talk about her. But a young girl was kidnapped and murdered in Bowling Green, and she had told the parents, no, she was just kidnapped and that she had amnesia and she was in a city in Pennsylvania and all this stuff. So the parents hired a private investigator. They went and looked up this town and everything, and they couldn't find the daughter, and the private investigator came back. So they went back to Sylvia Brown. Sylvia Brown gave them another reading, said, no, your daughter you just missed her. She's in another town in New York. Gave a town, gave a location, all that stuff. They sent the private investigator there too. Didn't find her. They spent tens of thousands of dollars. The woman, long and the short, the woman had come to me, and of course, I don't charge in murders and lost people and stuff. They don't charge. But I did pick up that her daughter had passed and gave her details, and she just said to me, you know, she goes, I don't know what's worse, like she goes, I knew my daughter had passed.
Okay.
She's like, I knew. But she said, I wanted to hang on to hope. But she said, I don't know what's worse because ended up costing my marriage. It cost me a bankruptcy to try to find my daughter following these tips, you know? So I felt really sad in that respect for her because I thought, well, that's like, she just took her down all these roads, you know? So at least you as a police officer come from a different thought pattern with that whole situation, right? I mean, maybe you can.
Yeah, we actually put a booklet together for the psychic and the police officer. There was another case where we had a little boy that was kidnapped, and it was supposed to be by the father, okay? And the father's family had a lot of money, and it wasn't too far south of here. It was within probably an hour's drive. And I didn't know any of the officers involved or anything else. And this detective had called Reverend Teresa, and she said, talk to me. So I talked to him and explained it. He said, my only problem is I've got a police chief that won't let me do this.
Oh.
He said he doesn't believe in it. Now I've had that happen with another chief. If you get too spiritual, you become too judgmental of somebody's gift. And they said, do you see that in the Bible? And I knew this from fact because I've read it. In the Bible, it says there are seers on this earth. Mm-hmm. I said, now who's allowed to use seers? You? Me? Certain people? Why can't we use seers? Now we were able to give this guy information, and she said, I want you to look down around Tennessee. So I have a town down there. And she said, I want you to look, there has to be a safety deposit or a mail deposit box separate from his house, and he's getting it under a different name. I want you to go down there and stake it out. The first day he got the guy.
Oh my goodness.
And they got the child.
She's good. Oh my God.
Yeah, they got the child. And then they brought him back. Well, then they had this big party, and they invited me. And I could only relay to the detective what the psychic could tell me. And, you know, and the chief was there. He showed up. And I said, Chief, I heard you don't like these things. And this guy nudged me. He said, please don't start a fight with him. And I said, I just want to talk to him. I said, Chief, we caught somebody. You understand that? You got to, if you can't believe in that spirituality, believe in somebody else's.
Ah,
that's all we
right.
ask. I'm not asking you to convert. The other chief had told me he's a very spiritual person, and the Bible would never allow him to do this.
Yeah.
And you know, and he was mad because there was a missing child, a 14 or 15-year-old runaway, and God bless him, another child was murdered during that time period, and the psychic that I was working with said, I told him the girl's with the boyfriend's parents, and here they were in Buffalo. They brought the boyfriend back in again. He was 16. And they worked on him, and he finally gave up the girl's location. It was in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. But he didn't want to hear that. Even though it came from the psychic, he said, that will never be published again. You'll never publish anything about my department again. I said, that's fine. I said, we'll give you all the credit, Chief. You can take a bow. But that's just the way they are, and that's why we put it in writing so that both sides would understand. I've had a lot of people say, well, I won't work with you. I said, well, then read this before you work with a psychic.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to do anything that's going to cause her harm.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and the cases I've worked on, I've always said, number one, don't mention you've worked with a psychic. Don't mention you've worked with me. I want to be completely out of it. You do not need to reveal my name. You do not need to reveal anything. Let me do this as anonymous, and I'll walk. You know, that way, because I tend to feel that like you said, the judgment aspect.
Yeah.
You know, where'd that information come from? You know,
Yeah.
like that.
Well, see, on ours we just said acting on a tip.
Yeah,
and
there we go. Acting on a tip, I like that.
Yeah,
So
we use that, and that's what I suggest to the officers, because if a tip came into like Crime Stoppers, that's what you would use.
Sure.
And
Psychic Crime Stoppers.
yeah,
I like it.
yeah, Psychic Crime Stoppers, and and you know, there's certain people. In fact, when you mentioned the 3 girls who were kidnapped, one of the Cleveland officers I knew asked me about that. And he said, "Could you ask the one psychic?" And I did. And Gina DeJesus, no, not Gina, the girl that worked at Burger King, the one that's on TV now.
Yeah.
You know how I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do. I'm like,
I didn't think I was going to talk about her, so I didn't bring in her information. But when she was picked up by that guy, number one, she said the parents knew him, that's what the psychic said, and there was a little girl in the car, and there was. When they found her, she said there was a girl about 8 or 9 years old in the back seat of that car when she was kidnapped. And in fact, the FBI agent who retired that's working on that had called me. And he said, "What did your psychic say?" And I said, "Well, let me ask you this now. Do you work with psychics?" "We don't acknowledge it." I said, "Well, I know you do because you took one of ours, to be honest with you." And told them, they said, "No, we don't work with the police on this." They just wanted it. There was a police chief that down around this area was missing. He took off, and everybody thought he was dead. He faked his suicide. He's never shown up. But she said he's still alive. And there was another one that had molested, not a police chief, but another one that had molested a child. And she said, put a tap on his phone, because this guy did not commit suicide. He made it look like he did, left his car down by the lake. And she said, he's in love with this little girl. He'll call again. And they traced him up around Detroit, but they never caught him. So it was probably a burner phone or something at the time.
Yeah.
So there are certain situations like that. And I just say you don't have to believe in anyone else's spirituality, but just accept them.
Right. Just let's be open. Let's
we talk about that in the book here.
Yeah.
We started this with I started this with some of the problems you deal with. People that you work with can be a real problem. When I started working with psychics, I would get all the jokes. And I hear from everybody.
Oh, sure. From the straight-laced police people are like.
Yeah, one of the police officers from another city. Sun News came in and he did a story on it. He doctored it up so much I had to laugh at it. It was really funny. And I did everything but walk on water for them, according to them. But in here, there's a lot of negative things that are done to you from time to time. And they didn't like it. And what does the Bible teach? No revenge.
Right.
Revenge is mine, says the Lord. And I'm not a big Bible thumper, but there are certain things that I believe in.
Yeah.
And so the psychics would talk about energy, and I thought, what if we return that energy, send it back to them? Power of positive thinking is metaphysics. So I was involved in metaphysics back in the 80s. And so I combined that with a spirituality. You have to decide. I don't tell anybody who to believe in. If you want to believe in God, you can. If you want to believe in your higher self, you can. If you want to believe in the universe, you can. Wherever you feel your spiritual roots are, that's what you go to for help. So on some of the negative things, and I gave several examples in the book here, of people that have done things to me over the years. And some people I worked with, a mayor and different things like that, and I just returned the negative energy to them. And I've seen so many things happen. That's what I put the book together. And it's picking up interest again now, which is nice. And I look forward to the people that can, want to help with it. They want to come forward and say, this helped me. There's an email in the back of the book. I said, please send me your story. I won't use your name. I won't use your company. And I've gotten a couple of stories. I have 10 stories now to start another book on how it helped other people.
Now, and you made this book together. You're also a Reiki master, healer.
Yeah, Karuna master, I'm at the highest level.
Karuna.
Karuna.
And you work on people. You do work like that. So, you understand about energy. So it sounds like, this is kind of a combination of like everything you've learned and kind of showing people how to maybe work on some different things, energy-wise, energetic with people. And so when you talk about, giving examples in the book, you show how to send energy back to people, like through thought or meditation, affirmations, or how is that?
Well, we talk about mental telepathy. If you ever heard of your mind's eye, you can close your eyes, and in your mind you can see. Some people call it a third eye that we don't have. We can't see. And in the mind's eye, if you tell that person you're returning their negatives to them, and the theory behind metaphysics is to zap them. I return your negatives to you, I zap you. Okay? I also mentioned to see yourself placing mirrors facing that person mentally. And to mental telepathy, tell them, may you reap what you sow. And I've had it happen so many times over the years. I mean, I could have added more to the book, but I didn't want to, because this shows some basic things. Recently, we were both together at that Holistic Health Fair.
Yeah, Holistic Health and Healing show in North Olmsted. Wonderful show every October, third weekend, second weekend in October. I always get that wrong, but it's going to be again coming up. So great show, right? You had a booth. We were right across. It was right across from you. Yeah, right across.
And I sold some books, but every person I sold it to needed it. That was the strange part. They found me. And I had some guy, older man, just walk up to me, and he said, ask me a bunch of questions, and he'd say, what? I said, sir, can you hear me? Oh, I forgot to turn my hearing aids on. So he turned them on, and he said, I'm tired of the political atmosphere. I said, there's a whole page on what to do with politicians.
Oh, well, that might be helpful just right there.
And I said, I don't care whether you're a D, an R, or an I. All we want to do is everybody get along and make the country a better place. That's all we ask for. And just mirror that person. There's a technique in there that explains how to do it. I had another lady.
There you go.
Yeah, another lady who walked in, and we talked about it earlier. She came rushing in, and she was out of breath. And I said, are you okay? And she said, are you the guy with the healing book? And I said, yes. And she said, my guardian angel told me about you. And I said, okay. And she said, I have a situation at work. And she said, I want to buy the book first, so she did. And she said, I've got a situation at work. I have a boss that's very mean. And she has taken pleasure in forcing 17 women out of their jobs. And she said she just did the last woman on Friday before this weekend. And she said, as the woman walked out, she laughed at her. And I said, that's one evil person. That's one of the persons whose world needs to come down, crashing down on her.
So it's such a Scorpio thing too, though.
It is too, but at the same,
yeah. But she's like, put it instant, make the karma instant.
Yeah, well, you see what you do though. You're going to your spiritual belief and ask them to, because we don't have that power with karma.
Well, right.
We'd like to.
True.
We'd like to, wouldn't we? But at the same time, I told her, I said, just go home and take it easy first. Relax before. Don't get all your emotions into this, and don't say anything that can cause them harm. Don't say, I want to see you die.
Right.
You don't want to say any of those things.
Yeah.
You always wish them the best that life has to offer.
Best and highest good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And let it happen from there. And there's some good examples in the book that the way I used it. And I was reading online about a year ago, and there's one guy, and I can't remember his name. They call him Que Pasa. Do you know who I'm talking about? No, he's not from around here. And he claims with karma, it can be 7 hours when it comes back to you, 7 days, 7 weeks, 7 months, 7 years, 7 decades, 7 generations. He said, so always put good out into the world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And there was one guy that I know that had done some things to me, and the people smile in your face, like the song Backstabbers.
Yeah.
They smile in your face all the time they want to take your place.
Right.
The backstabbers. And he still had some rough things going on. I've asked God to forgive him. I mean, I forgave him, by returning it to him, and when I was done. But I said, maybe he's learned his lesson now. Maybe take a break from sticking it to other people.
Right. Sometimes people don't learn, but we hope for the highest good everyone does. So how do people, if you're interested in wanting to order this book, how would they get the book from you? It's in a couple of bookstores, but what's the best way to get this book?
The best way is Amazon.com.
Amazon.com.
In the book section, I usually have to go on there to find it in the book section. They have so many things on there.
Healing and Protection.
Healing and Protection. They might have my middle name in there, although I did get in there without my middle name. There are several Thomas Caines that wrote books. And I
Okay.
guess there's about 15 of them.
So if it's not under Thomas Caine, it's Thomas A. Caine.
Yes, or Thomas Armond Caine, Armond.
Okay,
Okay, Caine.
Caine. Yep.
And
So yeah, and Amazon's a great way to order. It's easy, and then it comes straight to your house. And this is not this is a really decent priced book. So it's not like you're going to break the bank,
yeah,
but it's going to have a lot of good information. Well worth the order to get to help you deal with people and just sending, protecting. Now the healing part, that's part of what you do. You work on healing.
yeah, we always for all the victims I always run across. I keep a healing list for those people, and I do a Reiki session every morning, and I make sure I'm up every day, and it's a 20-minute session. Also on Facebook, there's a couple of Reiki groups that I'm still in contact with, and I don't know if you saw the one, what do they call her? The angel lady out in Rocky River, Linda Keene. And okay, she has a Reiki group. She has the groups that from time to time we work on cancer patients, terminal cancer patients. We know we can't change what's happening to them, but we can at least make them comfortable. And I also do a thing called reflexology, and I can relax them by using the reflexology on their feet. I can put most of them to sleep.
Oh yeah.
And she would do that on Sundays. We've had like 3 or 4 people, and I remember one mother. I felt so sorry for her. She was from Youngstown, and she said, "I only want to live long enough to see my son get his high school scholarship for baseball." And she said, "He's a senior now." We were into December, and we began to work with her. She said, "Just keep me going, please, till I see that." He got the scholarship in February, and she passed away the week after.
Oh, that's.
But
so
she did
sad.
get to see her son.
That's good.
And I said, "You might see him on a different angle too, spiritually."
Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah.
Cleveland Clinic acknowledges Reiki as a tool
Oh, yeah.
for helping people with cancer and just kind of getting through treatment a lot of times.
Actually, any hospital that you go to, if you ask them for a Reiki practitioner, they will bring you one.
I heard that Metro General now has a room set aside in their emergency section that is for Reiki. They have a practitioner who's on call or will work there. So they're making headway with that, thank goodness.
Yeah. And
But you worked really hard. We had a mutual friend, Laurel Williams, who was on this show many, many moons ago. She was on a show called we were going to do a show called What Was I Thinking? But she was on a show about how to get a good psychic reading. And she was a regular at all my psychic fairs, and I miss her dearly. She was a good friend of ours. And, you went down and worked on her. And I'm telling you, the energy work you did kept her. She was on the brink, and you brought her back. For whatever reason, she decided to stay for a little bit longer, and then she decided to leave again. But that was pretty amazing because we really thought we were going to lose her. And you were down there working on her, and she opened her eyes or something, like she just started talking to you.
the one time we thought she had passed.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden she opened her eyes. "Oh, I thought an angel was with me." And we started to talk. And I still visit a woman in the Massillon area named Bernice. And Bernice was one of my instructors back in '95. And I had met another psychic named Dorothy. In fact, Laura was on the task force, but Laura was sick at that time. And she sent me to Dorothy in Navarre. And Dorothy was a psychic, but also a healer. And she's the one who channeled me into Reiki. And through her, I met Bernice. Now, Bernice worked at Timken Ball Bearing Company in Massillon, and she was the company nurse. And one of the guys who worked there would come to the meetings. They used to have meetings down there. I led the group for a while until it started to die out, and people were actually dying. That's how the group died out.
Yeah.
And over the years, because I started going there in '95, and we closed it up in 2012. And I ran it the last 8 years.
Yeah, I
of that.
remember.
Yeah. So it worked out pretty good, but I still see Bernice. She's 87 years old. The one guy told me, he said, if you ever got hurt, you wanted Bernice. She would touch you and your pain would go away. And so she was the company nurse. As soon as somebody got hurt, they bring her right to Bernice.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and she visited a lot of people and took care of a lot of people. And I told her, I've never forgotten about you, so I go down once a month, and I'm going down tomorrow.
Oh, good.
Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday. Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah, Reiki is amazing. And, we did a show about Reiki healing. We had Lisa from Peace, Love, and Light, but
Okay.
Lisa Brusso. She was on, and that was several years ago too. I don't, but we covered Reiki, and I think our audience maybe knows a little bit. But again, maybe we should just explain what Reiki is again.
It's a spiritual healing. You're asking God to heal through you, or whatever your spiritual beliefs are. Because we had one woman that came to the group out of Worcester, and I worked on her the last 4 months of her life. She had pancreatic cancer. And I'd see her at the clinic when she was in here, and then at the end she was in hospice at Worcester Hospital, and I'd actually go down there, and I'd go down twice a month with her. It was more convenient. Bernice actually is still active at 87. She's going to all these senior centers. And I have to set up a time when I can come visit her. But this woman was an American Indian. And she worked with American Indian spirit guides. And she would tell me different things, and she was very accurate. But again, this was all new to me. When Dorothy said to me that first day that I met her, she said, you've got to channel all your energy into something, and I want you to get into Reiki. I said, I need one more thing, like I need a hole in the head. I said, I'm the only detective. I'm working my butt off every day. And she said, eventually you'll come into this. And I did. Yeah. And then I began to see a lot of the changes. And I was with her on Thursday, and she passed away on a Saturday morning. Oh. And when I went to, she was in the hospital. She was not doing good. And when I went to put my hand on her third eye to heal her, she said, no, let me go.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, okay. And she said, thank you. And I said, okay. So I said, would you tell your daughter if you want me to come back? She said, I want to go. She was 77. Oh. So, and she did. She did Saturday morning, and I was surprised. I don't normally do eulogies, but a lot of times your things come to you. Okay, 1:30 in the morning, the night before her funeral, I'm doing a eulogy that they never asked me to do, and I showed up, and her daughter said, "Could you do the eulogy?" I said, "I've got 3 pages. I wrote it at 1:30 this morning, and I don't know if it's all right." And also for the lady in Worcester too, the American Indian. Hers came to me at 1:30 in the morning. 3 pages, and I actually put in things that she wanted. Her stepchildren and children didn't get along, and I put things in there that she prayed for healing and asked for that they'd get along. And I ran into the daughter. She used to come to the meetings, and she said, do you know this Thanksgiving we were all together for the first time?
Oh, that sounds like a healing there,
and I
sure.
said, yeah, so I'm so thankful that's what your mother wanted, though.
Yeah.
I said, you have to understand that meant a lot to her.
Right. Well, that's, Reiki, I'm as attuned in Reiki too, and role Reiki master as well, but it's this universal symbols, channeling universal healing energy through the symbols that are passed on to you through an attunement. And it basically is just kind of like a magnifying glass. So you take all this wonderful healing energy out in the universe, and it kind of condenses through your hands and your energy, and it's not really your energy, it's from the universe. So it doesn't require religion.
No religion background.
There's no religious.
It just has to accept all religions.
Yeah.
Now William Rand is the one that brought it back to the United States in 1984. It came back from Tibet in the 1600s. It was back in Hawaii in the early 80s, late 70s, and he brought it back. And his website is www.reiki.org. And I'm actually registered with him.
Wonderful. William Rand is awesome, and the whole his center in Michigan is phenomenal. And I don't know if it's like he tunes people online too or something.
Yeah, I think he does that. But
I was like, you put your hand on the monitor and like you get the attunement. I'm like, okay, whatever works, because we can't have enough healing energy right on this planet right now. Everyone needs healing, whether it's whatever you believe in. Healing energy is so necessary with everyone seems to be kind of out of balance. So
I recently had surgery in August, and for 2 days I didn't do the healing. And 2 people that I knew that were on the list called me and said, in 2 days we don't feel good at all. Oh. And I said, oh Lord. I went back to the 3rd day, and then I felt better and they felt better. Oh. So I was grateful. So I to me it works. And, I'm the guy that you had to drag kicking and screaming in there. Yeah. And thanks to Dorothy, she's not with us anymore too, but God bless her, she's the one that brought me along.
Right. And, I remember with you, and you're very intuitive, and like you just kind of have that whole vibe, like, I'm not really psychic, but I remember when you took the weekend workshop with Dick Supton.
Oh yeah, yes.
Remember?
Yes, I remember that.
And what I found amazing, if it's okay if I share about the sword.
Sure.
Because what I found amazing is Dick Supton, who's one of my teachers, he came into town and did a two-day workshop in psychic development. And he kept putting us in trance, like hypnosis trance, like for doing work and inner work, right? And I can't remember each time, he made it easier and easier for us to get into trance. But he did a past life regression, and you were sitting like kind of in front of me. And I watched in the middle of this past life regression, I'm kind of got one little eye open, but because I just noticed that Tom had reached behind him, you had reached back here, and you did that. And we were all in trance.
Yes,
and
I didn't know.
Going, yeah, and they went like that, and then later you said, and even Dick Supton said, well, what was going on with you or something like that, and you were just like, well, there was a sword in my back, and I had to pull it out. It was like, and you were a Roman soldier or something in a previous life, and you were just like, you were carrying, you said your back pain started going away right away.
Yeah. So he taught us several things there. I did a reading for a lady there, just took a ring. And
right.
And she says to me, look at me, no man would look at me. And she was drop dead gorgeous. And I said, honey, you have a bad self-perception here. You've got to change that. And I said, let me tell you this, you're going to meet a guy. Now she was in her early 50s. And I said, you're going to meet a guy that's maybe a little bit older, but he's also an executive. And he's used to saying no. He's not used to saying yes. So if you want to go somewhere for dinner, send him a mental message. If you say, I want to go here for dinner, oh no, we did that not too long ago, we're not going. He's been set in that mold to say no. And she sent me an email. She met the guy. She said, I send him mental messages and I go wherever I want to go with him. Oh,
how cute.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So I guess that's in the book too, right?
No, that's not in the book.
That's not in the book.
No, there was some Richard. That's again part of our part of our training.
Richard.
I don't really sit down and can do a reading. I can pick up on people's feelings if they're hurt or if they're in need of something.
It's more empathic and sensitivity.
Yeah, I can pick up on that more than that I did with that lady there.
Yeah,
we did two others, and both of them both sent me emails and said,
wow. That was fun times. I'm telling you, that was like a great.
That's when you had your radio show.
I actually had my radio show on WERE 1300. Yeah. Back, it was 2003, I think, or something like that. 2003 or 4. But yeah, 2002 or 3. I was like, so yeah, it was so fun. Yeah, it was amazing. So I'm so grateful that you came on, and we talked about the book. So it sounds like you got a new book coming too. So stay tuned for that, right?
It's the Case of the Golden Swan. I'll let you know when that comes out.
I think that's fascinating. I think people really are fascinated by, real case scenarios. And it's not like on TV, these TV shows that are really edited and stuff, but there's some real validity to using all means necessary to help solve, a crime or a problem.
Well, the Case of the Golden Swan, I'll give them one more thing to think about. There actually is a golden swan. And the psychic had said he came to the house, he had worked there before, and he saw this golden swan. And it reminded him of his mother, and he was getting back at his mother. The last thing he did with his mother was go to an amusement park and ride on a carousel with a golden swan. She said, he's been back here 2 more times to get that swan. When I finally got him back to Ohio, it took me a while to get him extradited. He fought everything. And when I interviewed him, and I took his DNA sample, I said to him, by the way, I've got the golden swan. Do you want my address? If you want to come get it, I'll be waiting for you. And his eyes got real big. And I just left it at that.
Wow. Now, see, that would make a whole new movie. So make sure when you write that book, you also write a script, because I think that'd be a great movie.
There's actually a movie guy that he read this, and he wants me to, he was from Strongsville. I knew his dad. And he likes this, and he said, give me that golden swan. I said,
there we go.
I said, well, it's actually written. I have to put it on the computer, and that's been the hard part for me.
So, like in 2 years, when you're really famous, you will have said that you've been on.
I'll come back and I'll tell you. They will like. I won't give them the ending on the Golden Swan.
Right.
It's much easier to read it. But throughout that, I did use the techniques in here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
How amazing. So that sounds like so much fun. I love it. I love that idea. But so, on top of these things and your interests, what do you, right now people could get hold of you also. Do you do working healings for people as well?
Yeah,
Reiki?
we try to do it in a group because you don't want to do an individual at your house, somebody you don't know. That's the problem,
Oh, right.
Yeah, so
Right.
if we do anything, Linda Keene has a group that she can bring together. She used to get referrals actually from the hospitals with cancer patients, and that's what we did for several years.
Yeah.
But I have a email here,
Okay.
and it's my initials, and it's actually my first name initials, Tom C. 5611 at gmail.com.
Yeah.
It's in the back of the book, and if you do buy the book and you have success with it, please let me know what it was. We won't use your name or your group name.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. But I know that you still, well, good. You still get out and do working on people and all of that. And what is your best, just off the top of your head, what would be the best first technique someone should learn to do to help themselves?
I
in
think the first
healing
one,
or
the first one,
protection?
okay, on page 23, it just came out this way, is Psalm 23. That's the strongest prayer you can do for protection. And that's what the one psychic, Dorothy, had brought that up right away. She said, that's my favorite Psalm. When I wrote the book, it just came together, and it's on page 23. Okay?
That's funny.
So
That's a
that's one-
coincidence? I think not.
Yeah, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And that's the strongest prayer you can say. There was a little girl in Detroit, and I actually found it on the internet, and her grandmother taught her that prayer. And she was walking down the street one day, and a guy tried to kidnap her and tried to run after her, and she ran around the corner. She started screaming that prayer. It's later in the book, it's in there. And as she came around the corner, there was a police car sitting there with 2 officers.
Wow.
And
Oh, it
her
is a very powerful
Yeah, her
prayer.
grandma said that's the strongest power of protection. You don't have to adapt to anybody's spiritual beliefs, decide what they are. You can use other prayers from other religions. It's not, it's not something that's prohibited, but always use that, Psalm 23. And just practice mental telepathy. I do that with my son or my daughter. I'll send them a message, and it may not get through right away, but I'll get a phone call from them, There's a lot of clutter in their head, too. Some may not come through this afternoon.
Right.
But I may not be able to get a hold of them, too, because they're so busy. But eventually, I give you a quick call, then I know that it went through.
I know you have 2 beautiful grandchildren too,
Thank you.
and that are really intuitive. So
They actually made them both Reiki.
yes,
The little one is Reiki 1, and she's 5 now, she doesn't show too much interest in it. The 8-year-old is Reiki 2, and I remember her grandmother telling me on the other side that she said, I feel so good when she puts her hands on me. And I told her, I said, please practice this more. She said, I'm ready for Reiki 3. I said, not till I see you practice on other people besides Grandma. And I said, how about me? When I had open heart surgery, she actually came to the hospital with my daughter-in-law.
Oh, that's
And-
really great. I think children should be attuned.
Yeah,
I think especially the sensitives, the children that are sensitive, that are intuitive naturally or empathic, that I think that a Reiki attunement really helps them balance the energies that they don't know what to do within their own bodies. And I think that's a really good idea. The younger the better.
yeah, that's true. That's
Well,
true.
we can't go wrong having a bunch of little healers running around in
Yeah.
the school system, right? That
Yes.
they're going to heal their
I
friends.
said, if you can make somebody feel better, that's the objective of this, that we're on this earth for.
Absolutely. Oh, my ear started ringing. So it just means like, okay, maybe that's the next thing is like school systems are going to start acknowledging that. We'll be working through the school systems,
Yeah,
right?
That's possible, yeah.
Right.
I
So,
actually introduced it once. I want to introduce Reiki to the prison system.
yes.
And they thought about it, and they said, when you're ready, let us know. But I don't know if I'm ready to do that right now, because it's going to be a weekly commitment for like 6 or 8 weeks.
That would be awesome,
I know.
though.
They would pay for the materials, they said. But I'd have to, that's when I had the Reiki group in Massillon, Canton area. And I asked the people in the class, and they said, no, we're not going to a prison. They said, no, we don't want to do that.
But where else,
Would be a good place to start.
when Jesus was doing his work, he wasn't working with the rich people in temples. He
No.
was working in the street with the people who needed the most. And if there isn't a place more that needs healing, it's a prison, where people, people who are damaged and create damage in society, they need healing.
Yeah. But there is that fear factor. I mean, I one time went up to pick up a prisoner in near Toledo, and I'd gone into a prison. It was brand new. I said, "This is beautiful." He said, "Want me to show you around?" Biggest mistake I ever made. I said, "Sure." So we're walking through the sections. One guy's green. I said, "What does green mean?" "They're okay." Get into the next section, yellow. Just keep an eye on them. Don't let them too close to you. Got in the next section, red. I said, "I don't know if I want to be here." And he said, "Well, if anything breaks out," he said, "you're with us, and remember who hit you if somebody did." And 2 minutes later, this fight breaks out. They give me a club and a helmet, and here I am. And the next time I went there for a prisoner, we used to take our prisoners there to serve time, and we had to pick them up. There was a restroom right by the garage. I used that. I never went in their system again. I didn't get hit that day. I'm grateful, okay? But at the same time, that literally scared the heck out of me.
Oh, I can imagine.
Because all the alarms went off, all the doors locked. They opened up this container. Here's your hat and here's your helmet.
Is this like, that sounds very scary.
It is. And I can understand people not wanting to go into a prison and do it, and I understand that. So,
well, I'm sure though that they would have a safe, the safe guys, because
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, some guy who's, so gone is not really going to go, I think I'm going to learn how to heal people.
Yeah, but see, I was out in the general area walking through. There was a section where they were locked in the middle, but they were locked in. We were out right by these guys, and they said, "Stay." There was like 4 of them. He said, "Stay behind us," and he said, "We're going to walk towards them. If they know to go to their room. If they stay to fight, we're going to take them down and be ready for anything."
Wow.
And yeah, so I said, next time they say, "You want a tour?" "No, I've seen all I ever want to see the rest of my life."
I wonder if you could start with the guards and teach them first, so that they can work on the protection and the healing and sending Reiki before they even go to work or as they're in their shift.
Yeah, but again, if they have the desire to do it too, because you can't force it.
No, you can't. You can't force anybody into that. So that's fascinating. Well, good luck. I hope that works out.
Thank you.
That'll be fantastic. I know you've got a lot of things that'll be coming up. I just have a feeling that things are really going to get really super crazy busy for you. So again, if you want to get this book, it is Healing and Protection by Thomas Caine. And you can get it on Amazon, so you could just go there. The bookstore Goddess Elite carries it. Goddess Elite is in North Olmsted, and you can pick up a copy there at her bookstore. And maybe if we get lucky, you might do some more book signings.
Okay.
There's a place I know of, maybe, that might have you come down.
Maybe your next psychic fair? Okay.
Or come to a psychic fair.
Yes,
yeah.
We'll see.
I put on psychic fairs and have you come down and just sit and sign a book and sell some.
Okay.
That'd be awesome. So, Thomas, again, it's just been such a pleasure to have you as a friend for over all these years, and watching you work hard on blending both a very skeptical beginning and then working into the metaphysical and kind of balancing them both, I think is really impressive on my part. I've seen, because this is coming from someone who's a police officer, who's logical, and this is it, black and white, to go and move into now the spiritual and the metaphysical, and kind of combining them both and coming up with a way to help people heal and
protect themselves.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty exciting. So if you do want to get hold of them again, I'll list the email for you and the Amazon, and so people can look you up. And just anything else you want to add to what's going on?
No, thank you for the opportunity. Like I said, at the bookstore, all the people at the book fair, all the people that came in that day really, really needed this. And I know why I was there at this point. There was someone walk in and they'd say, "I'll buy it online." I said, "No, you won't. Just pretend you don't." And they would walk on, and I knew they would,
Yeah.
But all the people that got it, and I hope it helps them. I really do.
And I think it will. I think I read it, and I know when I got it from you, I have a tendency, I'm in many different directions at one time. I wear a lot of different hats. But I was really impressed, though, with some of the examples that you sent. So I think I'm really you know, can't help but tell you it's simple, it's precise, it's, you know, in other words, you can read it, it's not going to take you forever to get through it, but it's going to give you a lot of tips and pointers to help you with just kind of protecting from all the stuff that's coming at you on a daily basis. Like you said, at work, you know, people dealing with work issues, people dealing with family issues, and this is not about harming people. This isn't about magic. This isn't about like doing weird stuff. This is just about energy and what to do with it.
One more to add. One of the ladies that came up to me at the fair said, I believe in your book 100%. I said, well, do you know anything about it? And she says, no, but I know what you're coming from. And I said, well, you're interested in getting one? And she says, no. And I said, why not? She said, these people have hurt me a lot. I said, physically? Like, we could call the police. No. She said, emotionally and everything they can do to me. She said, but I don't want to see them hurt. I said, so you're going to suffer and not going to protect yourself? She said, no.
Wow. So the martyr thing.
Yeah.
I got to suffer because of it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's, well, hopefully that's not where most people would get the book and go, okay, let's just protect. Well, again, you know, I want to thank you for coming on, and, you know, we'll have you back.
Okay.
But I'll tell you ahead of time.
Okay.
Just, you know, but we'll set something up because I'm really excited about this next book because I think it would be a bestseller. I mean, this is a bestseller, but I mean, people are so intrigued by that whole scenario, you know, and that would make a really good, you know, Brad Pitt movie.
Well, yeah, the strange part was too, they taught me about psychics, and she took me to a psychic camp in Indiana called Chesterfield.
Camp Chesterfield, yeah.
Yes, and I learned a lot there.
It's a good place.
It is.
Spirituals Camp Chesterfield. Well, again, I want to thank you for coming on, and Healing and Protection by Thomas Caine. Amazon, catch it, all right? So I do want to thank everyone for tuning in to Psychic Sushi, and I appreciate the audience support. And you can also catch us on YouTube, Psychic Sushi TV, so if you want to catch some past shows. And again, I want to thank Brunswick Area Television for supporting my show. And again, thanks again, Thomas, and thank you, Brunswick, and we'll see you again soon.